Hello friends, today I will tell you the story of a true hero named Vasily Zaitsev. He was an indomitable Russian soldier who made his mark in history by killing 225 enemies within just a few weeks. Let's witness the bravery of this legendary sniper. The story begins with a young boy named Vasily. His grandfather was teaching him how to shoot with a sniper rifle in the Siberian region of Russia. Actually, his grandfather had tied one of their horses at a distance so that wolves would come to hunt it. His plan was to make Vasily shoot the wolves as practice. But as the wolves came too close, the little boy got scared and missed the target, accidentally shooting in the wrong place. As a result, the wolves attacked and killed the horse, which made the grandfather extremely angry at Vasily. Then the scene shifts directly to the year 1942, when Hitler had started advancing to invade Russia as part of World War II. We then see Vasily, now grown up, and join the Russian army to save his country. By then, Hitler had already taken over all of Europe and was planning to capture Russia to take control of its oil fields. But to fully occupy Russia, the German Nazi army had to first conquer a Russian city called Stalingrad. However, this wasn't going to be easy for the Nazis, because by that time, the Russian army had already reached Stalingrad. The war had already begun in that city, and at that moment, a commander of the Russian army shouted out to all the soldiers, declaring, "You have been brought here to save the country. If any of you try to abandon this sacred war, the remaining members of your group will kill you. If you want to survive, there's only one way: kill the German soldiers and save yourselves." After that, all the soldiers were put on boats and sent across the river, because the German troops had already wreaked havoc on the other side. As the Russian soldiers were crossing the river, they saw the floating corpses of their fellow comrades, which terrified them. And just then, German fighter planes started bombing and shooting at the Russian boats one by one. Because of the horrific gunfire and bombing, more than a half of the soldiers died right in the middle of the river. Many boats were destroyed, but fortunately, Vasily survived and, along with the remaining soldiers, managed to reach the other side of the river, where some senior officers were already waiting with weapons. These officers began handing out weapons to the surviving soldiers. However, by that stage of the war, the Russian army had run out of enough weapons. So, the army commanders were handing one rifle to every two soldiers and telling them, "We have very few weapons left. If you want to fight well, kill the German soldiers and seize their weapons." In such a desperate situation, poor Vasily didn't even get a rifle. His friend got a rifle, and he only got some bullets. Anyway, soon the Russian commander gave the signal to attack, and the Russian troops launched a direct assault on the German soldiers. But the Germans were heavily armed. They unleashed devastating machine gun fire and bombed the area, killing many Russian soldiers even before the battle fully began, including Vasily's friend. So, Vasily tried to grab his fallen friend's rifle, but by then, another soldier had snatched it away. Meanwhile, the brutal attack from the Nazi forces had left the Russian soldiers completely overwhelmed. They couldn't match the Germans in any way, so to save their lives, many of them turned around and started fleeing from the battlefield. As the commander had warned earlier, anyone trying to flee the battlefield would be executed. So the Russian commanders and senior officers themselves started shooting their own retreating soldiers. With intense gunfire from both the Germans and Russians, the battlefield was soon covered with the dead bodies of Russian soldiers. And walking over these bodies, the German forces captured the city of Stalingrad. Shortly after, a vehicle started moving through the piles of corpses, which caught the attention of the German soldiers. They immediately opened fire and destroyed the vehicle. But fortunately, a Russian officer named Commissar Danilov, who was inside the car, survived. Danilov's role was to deliver newspapers to the Russian troops. By then, German soldiers had arrived at the scene to capture him. But to save his life, Danilov hid himself among the heaps of corpses so that the Germans wouldn't realize he was still alive. The German soldiers were ruthless. They even opened machine gun fire over the dead bodies to make sure not a single Russian soldier survived. But by sheer luck, Danilov survived this too. However, the stench of the corpses around him was so unbearable that he vomited right there. Danilov tried to escape from the scene, but just then he spotted a German commander nearby who was taking a bath. He decided to kill the commander with a gun. But at that exact moment, a soldier emerged from the pile of corpses and stopped Danilov. That soldier was none other than Vasily Zaitsev. Vasily told Danilov, "Don't shoot now. If you fire, the Germans will hear it and hunt you down. You need to wait. When a missile or bomb explodes nearby, shoot during that noise so no one hears it. In fact, there were a few other soldiers guarding that German commander, which frightened Danilov. He realized that if the commander was killed, those guards would track him down and kill him. So he handed the gun over to Vasily. Now Vasily waited patiently for the perfect sound of a bomb or missile. At the right moment, when a loud explosion occurred, he pulled the trigger and shot the German commander dead. The guards didn't hear the gunshot at all. Then, as more bombs exploded, Vasily took the opportunity to take down every single German soldier there, sending them all to their graves. Seeing Vasily's brilliant marksmanship and courage, Danilov was extremely impressed. He took Vasily to the Russian army headquarters and published his heroism in the newspaper, how he had killed 4 German soldiers and 1 commander. Vasily felt quite proud reading this news. Soon after, the Russian leader Nikita Khrushchev arrived at headquarters. He met with the commander and said, "Your battle strategy is so terrible that our soldiers died before the war even began. On top of that, you killed our own soldiers. If Comrade Stalin hears about this, he will kill you like a dog. Instead of being killed in disgrace, you should kill yourself right now." Saying this, he handed the commander a gun and left the room. Shortly after, the soldiers outside heard a gunshot. It meant the commander had taken his own life. Then Khrushchev addressed the assembled soldiers and said, "We must take back Stalingrad. What can we do to boost the courage and morale of our troops?" At that moment, Danilov spoke up, "Sir, I believe instead of forcing soldiers into battle, we should reward those who willingly want to kill the Germans, give them promotions and gifts. Also, issue a statement that Russia will never punish or abandon them. That way, soldiers will fight not out of fear, but with joy, knowing that their country stands behind them." Khrushchev was very pleased with Danilov's idea and decided to implement it. And the first person to receive a promotion under this new policy was Vasily. To share the news of the promotion, Danilov rushed to Vasily and said, "Both of us have been promoted." Hearing this, Vasily was overjoyed and pledged to fight for his country until his very last breath. After being promoted, Vasily killed 33 German soldiers on the battlefield and caused 13 German commanders to be dismissed for failure. His heroic deeds were once again published in the newspapers, which greatly boosted the morale of other soldiers across the country, and everyone began praising Vasily. One day, Vasily was aiming at a German commander on the battlefield. Just then, a small boy suddenly appeared in front of him, disrupting his aim. This Russian boy, named Robin, had seen Vasily's photo and read about his bravery in the newspaper, and he saw Vasily as his hero. Robin pleaded with Vasily to come to his house, where his mother was overjoyed to see him and welcomed him warmly. A little while later, Danilov arrived at that house with a female soldier named Tanya Chernova. Tanya was not a frontline fighter. She secretly provided care to the wounded and ensured the safety of innocent Russian civilians. Danilov had feelings for Tanya, but Tanya admired Vasily for his extraordinary bravery. Meanwhile, German commander had sent a letter requesting the army's best sniper for battle. That day, Major Koenig finally arrived to meet with the commander. The commander told him, "There's a Russian sniper we haven't been able to kill yet. He has assassinated over 40 of our soldiers." Hearing this, Koenig became furious and immediately entered the war zone with his rifle. On his very first day, he ambushed and killed 5 Russian snipers. News of this spread rapidly among the Russian soldiers. A terrifying German sniper had arrived. Meanwhile, while Vasily was sleeping, a few of his friends came and woke him up, saying, "Some German soldiers may have entered our storage area. Can you check it out?" So Vasily took his rifle and went there. From a distance, he saw a soldier and shot at him. Then he and a friend went up to check, only to discover that it was not a person. It was a dummy. It was actually a trap set by Koenig, who then quickly shot and killed Vasily's friend. Vasily hid nearby and noticed a German cigarette on the ground. He realized a German soldier was close. At that moment, German troops began bombing the city of Stalingrad from aircraft, destroying everything. Seeing this, another of Vasily's friends tried to flee in fear, and Koenig shot and killed him too. Despite the chaos and destruction, Vasily managed to stay hidden and, waiting for the right moment, escaped from there. Then we see Koenig, who was making the boy Sasha clean his shoes while he read a newspaper. Seeing Vasily's photo in the paper, Sasha said, "I'm a big fan of Vasily. He's a brave warrior. I even met him once." Hearing this, Koenig began to form a plan in his mind. Vasily Zaitsev arrived at the Red Army headquarters, where another sniper named Kulikov came to assist him. Kulikov was an experienced sniper who had trained at a German sniper school under Major Erwin Koenig before the war. It was here that Vasily first learned from Danilov about Koenig's terrifying skills. Koenig was one of the world's best snipers, having single-handedly killed nearly 400 people. Hearing this made Vasily somewhat anxious, but Danilov reassured him that he would supply confidential information about Koenig's location in advance, which would give Vasily a tactical advantage. Later, Kulikov informed Vasily that several German soldiers were approaching their quarters. They quickly moved into position and first shot the German communication line so that reinforcements couldn't be called. But then they noticed a German soldier quietly trying to repair the line. Unfortunately, that person was actually a Russian soldier whom Koenig had taken hostage, dressed in a German uniform and sent to fix the line. Unaware of this, Kulikov shot and killed him. They then tried to change positions and move to a different location. To test if Koenig was nearby, Kulikov hung a helmet by a window, thinking that if Koenig was watching, he would fire at it. But Koenig understood the trick and stayed silent. Seeing no response, Kulikov assumed Koenig wasn't nearby and tried to escape. At that very moment, Koenig fired from a distance and killed him. Vasily narrowly escaped and returned to their camp. Meanwhile, Koenig again approached Sasha, the young boy, to have his shoes polished. He gave Sasha chocolate and cleverly gathered information about Vasily, such as which building he would go to on his next mission. Using this intel, Koenig went ahead and hid in a different building, waiting. Vasily arrived at the designated building, but he was extremely cautious, knowing Koenig could strike at any moment. He moved secretly through a ventilation pipe. But Koenig was observing that area too, and when one of Vasily's comrades came out of the vent, Koenig immediately shot and killed him. To save himself, Vasily hid behind an engine, but dropped his rifle while running. He told his surviving friend to return to the camp, then tied a rope to a knife to try and retrieve his rifle. But Koenig shot the rope and severed it. Vasily was now in a very dangerous situation. At that moment, German planes began bombing, and a shard of glass shattered and fell right in front of Vasily. Koenig used the glass to closely monitor Vasily's reflection. Meanwhile, the injured soldier returned to the camp and informed Tanya Chernova about Vasily being trapped. Hearing this, Tanya immediately decided to go rescue him. Seeing how anxious Tanya was for Vasily, Danilov realized she might have feelings for him. But going to save Vasily could be fatal for Tanya too, so Danilov tried to stop her, but failed. Tanya reached Vasily through the vent. Vasily told her not to exit the pipe, then gestured with his hand toward Koenig's direction and signaled her to hold up a piece of glass so he could locate him. Tanya did so, and as the light reflected off the glass and momentarily distracted Koenig, Vasily emerged and shot him in the hand. Vasily then returned to camp, where celebrations broke out, because he had struck Koenig in just one shot. But Vasily remained thoughtful. He told Danilov he didn't want his pictures published in the newspapers anymore. He wished to fight anonymously like his fellow soldiers. But Danilov replied, "You are not an ordinary soldier. You are an experienced sniper. When your successful missions appear in the papers, they inspire thousands of our troops to fight with renewed courage." Saying this, Danilov called for the boy Sasha, because Danilov had actually been using the child for intelligence gathering. Sasha was actually trying to gather secret information from Major Koenig about the German army. Seeing this, Vasily became furious with Danilov because Sasha was just a child, and involving him in such work could endanger his life. However, Sasha was very happy doing this task. He said, "Whenever Koenig comes to me, I notice some chemical substance on his shoes. He must be camping at our local chemical factory." The next day, Vasily secretly went to that factory and waited for Koenig. But unfortunately, Vasily, being exhausted, fell asleep there. And during that time, Koenig passed right in front of him. Because of his sleep, Vasily missed the opportunity. Meanwhile, that very day, the German army launched a surprise attack on the Russian soldiers' camp. In the midst of the horrific gunfire, many soldiers were killed. Among them, Vasily was seen lying still on the ground. One German soldier was stealing money and valuables from the pockets of the dead Russian soldiers. From a distance, Koenig was watching the scene and saw Vasily lying there. Just when Koenig was about to go and shoot Vasily, the thieving German soldier stepped in front of him. At that moment, other German soldiers caught the thief. While searching him, they found Vasily's ID card in his pocket, and from this, they assumed that Vasily was dead. After receiving this news, Koenig considered his mission complete. Besides, the German commander ordered him to leave, as his job, killing Vasily, was done. Meanwhile, when the Russian commander Nikita Khrushchev received the news of Vasily's death, he went mad with grief. But Danilov approached him and revealed the truth, that this was all part of Vasily's plan. He had deliberately spread the news of his death so that the German army would relax and not prepare further attacks. Still, the commander was worried that the news of Vasily's death would break the morale of their troops. And that's exactly what happened, because at that moment, German radio began broadcasting the report of Vasily's death. Hearing this, Tanya was devastated. But even after seeing her in such a terrible emotional state, Danilov didn't say anything to her. Elsewhere, we see that Koenig hadn't left Russia yet. He came again to Sasha to get his shoes polished. But today, Sasha was crying uncontrollably, because his hero, Vasily, had died. Koenig said, "Don't cry, Sasha. I know Vasily is still alive. Come to the train station tomorrow morning. I'll arrange a meeting between you and Vasily." Sasha quickly informed Danilov about the event at the train station. Naturally, Danilov passed this information on to Vasily. The next morning, Vasily arrived at the station ahead of time and waited for Koenig. But just then, he saw Tanya arriving there to help him. Vasily was surprised and asked, "How did you know I was alive?" Tanya replied, "I heard it from Sasha." She started crying and said, "When I heard the news of your death on the radio, I was heartbroken. I love you so much. I never want to lose you." Saying this, they came close to each other. Meanwhile, Sasha also arrived at the train station as Koenig had told him. But Koenig hadn't come to reunite Sasha with Vasily. He came to kill him. Koenig had figured out that the boy had been spying for the Russian army, so he killed Sasha and hung his body from a pipe. Seeing this, poor Tanya was completely shocked. She screamed and cried uncontrollably, and Vasily consoled her and said, "I promise, I will kill Koenig and avenge Sasha. But for now, you must return to the camp. I'll take care of Koenig." Meanwhile, we see a camp where the German soldiers were about to launch an attack. To protect all the civilians of the city, they were being sent across the river by boat. Among them was Sasha's mother, but she absolutely refused to flee, leaving her little son behind. In such a situation, Danilov lied to Sasha's mother, saying, "Your son betrayed us." He sided with the Germans. In reality, he didn't want the mother to be mentally shattered from the grief of her child's death. At the same time, when Tanya returned to the camp, she was unfortunately severely injured by a missile strike. In that moment, Sasha's mother rescued her and placed her on a boat so that she could be taken across the river for medical treatment. Along with this, Sasha's mother left behind a letter addressed to her son. "Dear, I'm going across the river. If you find this letter, please come to me." Meanwhile, Danilov struggled to reach Vasily Zaitsev to help him. When he finally did, he told Vasily that Tanya had died in the missile attack. Upon hearing this, Vasily broke down in tears and cried uncontrollably. Seeing everything unfold, Danilov decided, enough is enough. Major Koenig must be stopped. So, risking his life, he deliberately exposed himself in the open, hoping Koenig would shoot him so that Vasily could identify his location. And that's exactly what happened. Koenig fired the moment Danilov came into view, but Koenig mistakenly believed he had shot Vasily. To confirm, he stepped outside, and right then, Vasily appeared in front of him with a gun pointed straight at him. Koenig realized he would not survive. Before dying, he saluted Vasily out of respect for his bravery. Then, Vasily shot him in the head and killed him. Afterward, he took Koenig's rifle and placed it on Danilov's body as a gesture of honor. 2 months later, the Russian army defeated the Germans and recaptured the city of Stalingrad. When the war finally ended, Vasily arrived at a hospital and was overjoyed to find his beloved Tanya alive. They were filled with happiness and decided to spend the rest of their lives together. After the war, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin preserved Vasily's sniper rifle in his honor at the Stalin Museum, where it remains on display to this day. So, how did you like the story? Let us know in the comments. That's all for today. Goodbye.